Welcome to Story Comic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 406. I'm your host, Barney Smith of StoryComic.com, and we're excited to have with us the acclaimed and internationally celebrated author of Mindful Masculinity, a book for men and the women who love them, Scott Grace. Scott,
Yes.
how you doing?
I'm proud. I'm proud to be number 406. I've always wanted to be that number. Barney, it's such an honor to be that number. I don't know what it means, but I know that it means something.
So what it is like I wanted to make sure, because I was really excited to have you on, Scott. So it took me 405 people to be prepared to...
Boy. Oh, well, I'm glad I don't feel any pressure.
No. But as you're saying before the recording, it's like you're a well-known life coach, speaker, comedian, author. We're talking about the fourth book that you've written, is that what we're going to be talking about now. But Scott, you are no stranger to basically every realm of media and literacy. Is that you've been able to touch on almost all of it as well. So really excited to talk to you about your newest book, which is, as we mentioned, it's like, Mindful Masculinity. I myself, I'm really excited about this because I've been married for 12 years. I have two daughters and I have a son. And the one thing that you can't escape is right now is just like the consistent role that I have in my family and what my expectations are of when I need to be an active part of the family, or when my job is to support, and when my job is also to just sit back and actually just be a spectator in certain events as well. And I know, so I have a lot of questions for you, and then we'll jump right into it. But first, let me just ask you to begin with, Scott, is like, what inspired you to write this book?
Tremendous pain. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got like 40 more.
Tremendous pain. Like, who am I as a man? Why can't I keep a relationship? What's wrong with me? And these are questions that don't have answers because they're not the right questions. They're not helpful questions. I went through, who am I as a man? And what does it mean to be a man? And what's good and what's not so good about being a man? As if there's a roadmap, as if there's something we can all agree upon. And I realized at some point that it's not about that we can't agree because there's no rules. It's not supposed to be a science. It's supposed to be an art. And we get to decide what works for us and what doesn't, and how that fits into societal rules and regulations.
Right.
So I found my way, and writing this book was a part of how I found my way of being a man.
And so one of your key themes is the transition from thinking with your head and instead thinking with your heart. Why do you believe that shift is essential for men right now?
Because we're about to destroy the planet with our left brains. That's it. We've been so out of balance that the nature of of our evolution is do or die. And I just thought, hey, let's put into words what is obvious. If we continue down this road of dominance over nature and over all things feminine, we're going to die. Boom, bada bing,
Mm.
bada. It's like it's pretty obvious now. And I wanted to put into words my feelings about that and what we could do if we wanted to bring balance to an out of balance system.
Mm. Because you avoid the term toxic masculinity in your book, despite its we hear it a lot in modern culture right now, and so why did you make that choice to not use that term?
My belief is that masculinity is like oxygen. It's just important and it's precious. And
Mm.
if you strip away all the ideas about it, it's groovy. It's like it gets things done. It moves things along. And I don't believe there is such a thing as toxic
Mm.
masculinity. I think there is such a thing as masculinity that has forgotten how it's in relationship with feminine energy,
Right.
how we're like dance partners. So I want to support men and feeling good about being a man, and at the same time teach them what it's like to be a whole brained man. Left side of the brain intellectual, right side intuitive,
Mm.
whole brained. That's what's going to take us out of this mess.
Because you do bring up too is like you emphasize the importance of grief and vulnerability in the male experience. So how do you
Yeah.
encourage men who see crying as a sign of weakness that they should actually just embrace those emotions?
I don't try to convince
Mm.
anyone of my beliefs, but there are plenty of men who are coming to me as a coach with on their knees,
Wow.
and they're humble because of their life experience, because they haven't been able to keep a woman, or they've gone the traditional route and discovered that lots of money and prestige, it doesn't give them the fulfillment they
Mm.
thought they would get from being a manly man. So that's what I deal with is men who are humble and willing to look differently at things.
Like I love one thing that you brought up as well is the that communication and honesty is might look different between men and women. Uh, how can men improve that communication like that?
Well, the fastest route for me is to check in with my body and
Mm.
say, I'm feeling tension in my belly right now. My shoulders are tight, and this is my experience. Most men are used to speaking what's going on in their heads, and here are my opinions and here are my interpretations of what you're doing. It doesn't create connection or intimacy. But if you can start with, here's what's going on in my body, that's a great start. Because what men need to learn is how to speak the inarguable truth about what's going on for them.
Mm.
Meaning, nobody can argue with, I feel tightness in my belly. There's no argument. This is what I'm going through.
And then we were just talking about this earlier too about my like my relationship with my wife and also with my kids. You also have your chat. You also have in your book a chapter that discusses the pressure of men who feel they need to measure up, whether that's as providers, spouses, fathers. How can men redefine success for themselves in a way that also fosters some of that own self acceptance?
How could men redefine? I would say by becoming in love with discovery.
Mm.
Um, Instead of I'm here to help, I'm here to heal, I'm here to fix, I'm here to make life better for my loved ones. It's like, what am I discovering about my history, myself? That's gold. We need men to step back from the drama and become interested, curious. I love the word curious. Curious about what's making me tick? What makes me want to fix people I love? What makes me want to be better than other people? Wow. Boom.
Huh. And what advice would you give to women who want to support their men in their lives and becoming more mindful and emotionally available?
Women have their own work to do. They they're going to have to like um sit this one out and let men figure it out for themselves. They can say, hey, I feel closer to you when you're just listening to me. And that's great. It's great feedback. But men need to evolve into um, more mature human beings with or without the help of a woman.
And so, because with your background, you're also, as we mentioned, you used humor a lot in a lot of your careers, um, and humor is a standout feature in the book. So, how do you use your humor to help men kind of tackle some challenging topics like vulnerability, shame, and ego, and things like that?
Wow. You know, the question answers itself. How do you get men to look at their shadow? You make it fun, you make it interesting. I reveal my own bullshit throughout the book. I do that because just like you, just like anybody who's reading the book, I've been through it. And, you know, I make fun of myself partly because it helps me to heal, and partly because it helps men to look at themselves and not be so scared of what they see in the mirror. And we're all so beautiful.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. You also mentioned in your book too about, we're talking about, like humor and self-reflection. Um, Failure is often seen as something to avoid, yet you describe it as a powerful teacher. Can you share an example of mentioning like a failure that you've seen that has taught some significant lesson about masculinity?
For me, once upon a time, I made a living, you know, like doing everything uh, by uh, my music, my coaching. And during COVID, it went to hell. And I needed to get a job, a real job, a job. And I got one. I got two actually. And I discovered that just being with people, serving people, I was sweeping the floors, cleaning the bathroom at Sprouts grocery store. And for the first 6 months, I was like, God, what am I doing? I'm meant for so much more. God, why did you put me here? But then I went into this is so precious.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's an example. It's just, it doesn't matter so much what you do, it's how you do it.
Right.
And coming from a full plate where you're just giving and not judging yourself for what you're
Huh.
giving. That's what I
S-
learned from that
s-
COVID job.
Okay. So compare this to your other books. Your three previous books. What have you learned about yourself from this book?
By writing this book, I discovered that I have masculine energy, that I'm not this wimpy, overly feminine guy that needs a makeover to be a man. I discovered that I have courage, I have originality, I have purpose that doesn't involve wimpy. Like I discovered that I have a lot to say to men, to women about men. And it's not traditional. It's not, it's not about biceps.
Hmm.
It's really like out there. And I'm excited to stand behind it and say, this is not just my truth, but this is the next step for what men are going to be needing to make it through these crazy times.
So mindful masculinity feels more like a movement, not just a book. So what are your hopes for the future of this? And do you have any plans for any follow-up projects then?
Yeah, I think I would like to support men in maybe groups but really my greatest joy is one on one. I
Hmm.
love connecting and getting to know a person and supporting them. So I don't know. I find that my dreams and visions for the future tend to be grandiose. They're not connected to what do I love. I love having time to play tennis and pickleball and meditate, and I love the kind of contemplative life that I live. So if I'm going to be active in the world, it's going to have to be that the universe tells
Hmm.
me, because I'm not all that into making a name for myself. I don't I don't like it.
And so, and this book came out, I believe, almost a year ago, right? It was January
Oh
2024.
yeah, January 2024.
You have, and it's so funny because if you look at the actual, your humor is sprinkled in throughout this. It's like even the write up says directions for use: take 2 or 4 chapters once or twice a day, with or without food. Chew each sentence thoroughly. If mental and emotional indigestion occurs, please see your doctor. That's so funny.
I forgot about that.
And it's big. It's like over 250 pages as well.
Yeah.
How quickly did it take to write this?
Not very quickly, about a
Okay.
little over a year. I was combining my truth telling, confession, with wisdom and poetry.
Hmm.
I realized that there's certain things I could say that were best said in rhyme, just to keep people on their toes and keep it playful. So very, very um, deep subjects addressed in rhyme. I don't know if you've read the book or if you're just quoting it, but I'd be happy to give you a little taste of what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah.
So, the book talks about the ego, not the ego that Freud would talk about. In other words, Freud defined ego as the sense of self, kind of neutral, not really good or bad. But in the book, I define ego as your neurotic sense of self, the fictional you that you created to survive a not so great childhood,
Mm.
and that is now your nemesis.
Hmm.
So one of the rhymes in the book is, the ego will travel with you on this earth and be your companion for worser or worse. It pretends it's your friend, your bestest amigo, and it pours on the guilt. That's the beverage of ego. It's there to protect you, to help you feel strong. So it has to remind you you're doing it wrong. You're weak and you're lazy and you don't have a clue. That's your drill sergeant ego trying to motivate you. The ego wants you to be all you can be, so it gives you these pep talks all day and for free. Oh, the places you'll go and the guilt trips you'll travel, as the ego plays judge and bangs down on its gavel. But you always can get some relief from your pain by projecting it onto the others you'll blame. Because that is the ego at its beastiest best. It nurses its grievances close to its chest. Republicans, liberals, your parents, your ex. The world is just teeming with folks to correct. If only these fools could get on with, if only these fools could conform to your ways, you could get on with life without further delay. One day, when you've failed and succeeded enough, you witness your ego exposed in the buff. You realize behind all its protective clothing, the ego's been hiding a state of self loathing. Beyond that, you realize the biggest of deals. You've dreamt up the ego, it's not even real. So, for richer, for poorer, in all kinds of health, you make a commitment to loving yourself. You realize the love that you searched for outside you is what you are made of. It can't be denied you. So, you let go your plans, your potions, your pills, put some logs on the fire, and learn how to chill. Your old superstitions have gone up in smoke, like you can't rest in peace until after you croak. You no longer fear death, or for that matter, life, because you know that all matters are safe and all right. While resting in peace, you will soon be inspired to go out in the world with some newfound desires. Desires that spring from your heart and your soul. And wherever they take you, you're going there whole. Because the ego is now in the passenger seat. It lets down the window and takes in the treats. You're not in a hurry. You're going there slow. Because the journey's as rich as the places you'll go. Where you are going, you don't need to know. Because the journey's as rich as the places you'll go. The journey is as rich as the places you'll go.
That's beautiful, Scott. Wow. And that's it's deep, it's profound, and it's accessible. I love it. That's great.
A lot of the book is about showing men that there's an alternative to workaholism, to define your worthiness based on your accomplishments. So, this
Wow.
whole idea that you can be relaxing mellowing, enjoying life, and then get marching orders, get inspiration from the universe to do something with your masculinity, but not to prove your masculinity, but just to express. It's beautiful. It's so different than coming from a place of inadequacy where I have to prove my manhood.
So, Scott, if people want to pick this book up, where's the best place they could go to get it?
I would say, um, buy the book, get it from Amazon, and pick it up and see how heavy it is. I don't really think it's very heavy. I think it's very light, but it is on Amazon.com. Mindful Masculinity, a book for men and the women who love them.
And Scott, if people want to learn more about you, where's the best place they could go to?
Harvard University. No, I'm teasing. ScottSongs.com. My website is Scott, SCOTT, and then SONGS.com. Basically, I started my career as a musician, inspirational, motivational songs. And then gradually I moved into coaching and writing books. But I always kept that thread of music because it's the fastest way, I think, to get to people's hearts is in
Mm,
a song or poem rather than, telling people, well, what you think. It's like, use the arts.
right. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Scott. And listen, when you have another book, come back on when you have another book out. This has been fantastic. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time, and we don't need another book to have another look at what makes us cook. We can do a conversation of celebration without having a topic that has to do with a book. I'm not, I may not ever write another book, but I want to continue conversing with people like you about what makes us happy.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much.
I'm a comedian. I won the Hey, You're a Good Ordinary Comedian award.
I saw that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember seeing
yeah.
that. That was televised, I believe. On I think that
Oh,
was
it was great. I had to
yeah,
wear, clothing that I usually don't wear.
yeah. Like I remember that you actually had it was a bolo tie, and you usually you're a necktie kind of guy. See, yeah,
Usually I'm more of a bathing suit.